Potentially impacting your wallet right here in Iowa, agriculture trade is hitting a record high deficit at almost $20 billion. The U.S. Department of Agriculture reports the U.S. is importing about $78 billion in ag products.
It began with rumors around the ports. Then came the official word. A large wheat cargo from the United States headed for Southeast Asia had been turned away. The buyer raised quality concerns. Within days, additional denials came in. Containers were redirected, contracts were secretly canceled, and futures were rocked. But what was once considered as a minor logistical issue has already escalated into something considerably more hazardous. American wheat, long regarded as a gold standard in global markets, is being passed over, and fast. Longtime importers from Egypt to Indonesia are now turning their attention north to Canada. Shipments that would have landed in Louisiana or Seattle are now docking in Vancouver. Farmers in Saskatchewan and Alberta are handling urgent contracts that were initially intended for Kansas and Nebraska. What about the headlines? Strangely silent. Panic is spreading in America's grain elevators and silos. This is more than just a few rejected barges. This is a wake-up call. Because behind the scenes, global purchasers are beginning to ask difficult questions. Is American wheat still worth the risk? Or has it become too costly, inconsistent, and delayed to trust? While the United States looks for answers, Canada is cashing in. And for American farmers, many of whom are still recuperating from trade conflicts, inflation, and supply chain disruptions, this could be the unanticipated final blow. The Great Rejection has begun, and it's changing everything. The rejection of American wheat did not occur overnight. It's the outcome of a perfect storm that has been silently brewing for years. The warning indicators can no longer be ignored. Buyers in Asia, Africa, and even Europe are raising concerns about the quality of American wheat. Multiple cargoes tested positive for increased amounts of mycotoxins, which are naturally occurring fungi that can taint grain during wet harvests. For many foreign governments, particularly those with strict food safety rules, this is a deal breaker. However, the issues extend beyond mold. Exporters have also faced delays. A series of port delays on the West Coast, continued rail congestion in the Midwest, and labor strikes at major ports have made timely delivery impossible. Unpredictability is not only inconvenient for purchasers who are concerned about food security and price volatility, it is also intolerable. Then there's the cost. The price of wheat in the United States is presently among the highest in the world. With rising gasoline prices, higher fertilizer costs, and a strong dollar, many importers are looking for more affordable and dependable alternatives elsewhere. Canadian wheat, for example, has stayed competitively priced due to a favorable exchange rate and efficient delivery via Pacific ports. In short, American wheat is becoming recognized for three things: high pricing, long wait times, and doubtful quality. That is not a reputation you want when you are attempting to feed nations. So purchasers are walking, and they aren't alone. The alteration is slight, but strategic, and it's leaving American farmers in the dust. While U.S. wheat exporters were dealing with complaints and trying to salvage deals, Canada was already answering the phone. From the prairie provinces of Saskatchewan and Alberta to the ports of Vancouver and Prince Rupert, Canada progressed quietly and precisely. International buyers, who had traditionally been associated with U.S. contracts, began to reroute orders north, and the Canadian grain sector didn't skip a beat. Farmers who had barely finished harvesting were unexpectedly confronted with urgent purchase requests. Grain firms have hastened inspection and grading methods. Transport Canada coordinated rail priorities to keep freight moving. Within weeks, what began as a few substitutions evolved into a full-fledged trade move. Why Canada? It wasn't just luck, it was preparation. For years, Canadian wheat has earned a reputation for reliable quality. Lower pollutant levels, stricter pesticide controls, and a more reliable supply chain made it a safer bet during volatile markets. Combine that with favorable currency exchange rates and proactive government trade policy, and you have exactly what buyers want: dependability without drama. Even the optics went in Canada's favor. While U.S. farmers were in the news for rejections and quality concerns, Canadian producers were featured in trade bulletins as preferred supplier. It isn't that Canadian wheat is fundamentally superior, it's simply better positioned. And in today's volatile global market, perception is power. Canada seizes the moment not by doing something flashy, but by remaining the steady alternative. Now, with export demand increasing and contracts coming in, it's evident that Canada didn't merely gain from America's misstep. They capitalized on it. In the vast fields of Kansas, Nebraska, and North Dakota, The tone has gone from frustration to fear. Farmers who once relied on consistent export contracts are now faced with bulging grain bins and empty order books. Wheat is harvested. The trucks are ready. But what about the buyers? Gone. With contracts withdrawn or indefinitely postponed, the economic implications are mounting up quickly. Elevators are rejecting deliveries due to a lack of storage. Futures markets have reacted strongly, with wheat prices in the United States falling, while those in Canada and Australia rising. This decision could not have come at a worse moment for manufacturers, who are already under pressure from inflation, gasoline prices, and high-interest loans. Many farmers are left asking, what happened? We obeyed the regulations. We treated the crops. We met the quotas, stated one farmer near Wichita. But no one is buying, and no one is explaining why. Some are laying fingers at the federal level, accusing the Biden administration of neglecting to renegotiate favorable trade terms or enhance inspection requirements to reassure international customers. Others point to long overlooked infrastructure difficulties, such as aging rail lines, underfunded ports, and a grain certification process that has failed to meet global standards. Local economies are also feeling the strain. Grain transport businesses, millers, and rural suppliers are experiencing a decrease in orders. What was expected to be a steady harvest season has become a cash flow problem. And worst of all, there is no evident solution. Foreign purchasers aren't only hesitant, they're establishing new partnerships abroad. The heartland isn't only losing money, it is eroding trust, and that is much more difficult to reclaim. What started as a subtle shift in grain contracts is now flashing warning flags of something much bigger, a global rebalancing of agricultural alliances. At the heart of it is growing concern about the trustworthiness of U.S. exports. Major wheat importers such as Egypt, Indonesia, and Bangladesh, which formerly relied primarily on American sources, are now looking for alternatives. Canada has stepped up, but they're not the only ones profiting. Argentina, Australia, and even Russia are aggressively increasing their reach by offering long-term supply agreements with speedier shipping guarantees and fewer restrictions. China, too, is playing their cards. After a contentious few years of agricultural negotiations with the U.S., Beijing has struck new procurement deals with Canadian and Brazilian exporters in an effort to diversify away from American dependence. Meanwhile, India is indicating that it intends to extend its involvement in regional wheat trading by supplying lower-cost exports to neighboring Asian countries. What is emerging is a new trade map in which the United States is no longer the world's default breadbasket, but rather one among several options, and an increasingly unappealing one. Analysts are seeing this as the first volley of an agriculture trade war waged not with tariffs or penalties, but with reputational trust and logistical speed. It's no longer about who grows the most grain. It's about who delivers consistently and on schedule. And if the United States does not quickly reestablish its trust, it will lose not only market share, but also influence. Because when wheat stops crossing borders, diplomacy becomes hungry. As global buyers restructure their supply chains and foreign ports welcome Canadian exports, one question echoes across America's peaceful fields: what next? For decades, American farmers were persuaded they were feeding the world. They formed the foundation of the global food system, supported by strong trade relationships and a reputation for excellence. But now, with contracts canceled, silos full, and purchasers fleeing, that narrative is unraveling. This is not simply a market correction. This is a wake-up call. While other countries modernized their export processes, strengthened diplomatic relations, and adjusted to changing demands, the United States relied on its legacy. That legacy, it appears, no longer ensures devotion. Many American farmers, who are already battling with climate instability, equipment debt, and declining profitability, are now bearing the burden of policies made far above them. And the worst part? They're doing everything correctly. The wheat is ready. The trucks are ready. Buyers are not. Meanwhile, Canada is not simply seizing contracts. It is also establishing trust. Unless extraordinary measures are made to restore faith in American exports, such as greater quality control, faster logistics, and smarter diplomacy, the United States' agricultural dominance may fade. Because in the brutal world of global trade, it makes little difference who planted first, only who delivers.